think as we look to endorse our master plan that we've been working on for the last couple of years. So what we'll do is we'll start with karakia, and Joe, if you're happy to lead us in karakia. Kia ora.
Kia ora tātou. Kia tautarangi mari ki tēnei whira whare, kia tautarangi mari ki tātou. Peace unto this house and peace unto us all. E te māngai ngāne here pone, tuku tōru topi ki a tātou māneka te tēnā whakamōmi te hui hui a mātou. Hei tāteringi kupu katoa e whakapū ki na mātou o te koutukoro ori o tāna. Ko kautana hoti tīmatanga me te whakaotinga mai o mātou utu manaka atu nei ro te koutukoro ori o tāna. Ko te māngai e tautoko mai, ai nei ake nei, ai.
Ai. Kia ora. Thank you, Joe. So it's lovely to have a full complement here from our members from across our partners. I do just have a note, Nick Flack from the airport has given his apology, so he's a speaking member who would like to be here today but is conflicted, so we'll just note that for the minutes. I'll then make a call if there's any conflicts of interest on the papers being discussed today. There being none. No announcements by myself. We'll just add a minor matter of a discussion of next steps, being that this is our final meeting. So what looking forward is, so we'll discuss that at the end of the meeting today. Are there any other minor matters members would like to discuss? There being none, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for the minutes held on the 17th of February be taken as a true and accurate record. Happy to move that from the chair, seconded by Member Riti. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carried. We'll discuss minor matters at the end today, so we'll move on to our project manager's update. And Cam, we'll pass over to you to introduce and talk to the paper. Kia ora.
Oh, thank you. Morning, everyone. I'll just quickly introduce the team once again. We're fortunate to have Greg here this morning with us in person, so welcome and thank you for making the effort. And obviously we have Rebecca from BOFA with us as well again this morning, so yeah, good to have both of you guys here. So first up, I thought I'd just run over the project manager's updates. Obviously it's only over the period since our last workshop, so it is a relatively short one, given I think that was only potentially 2 or 3 weeks. After that, we'll hand over to Connie to introduce the endorsement paper, and during that paper you'll hear from Rebecca as well. So it'll be a bit of a tag team between Rebecca and Connie for that paper. So in terms of the project manager's update, basically we have the first table there just outlining actions undertaken. So as you're aware, we had the joint committee workshop on the 23rd. Within that session, there was a project manager's update provided. There was an update on the Lagoon Farm Stormwater Diversion Project. And one of the key or the focus was really the outcome of the public consultation framework that had been undertaken. Then next line there, Connie actually prepared quite a comprehensive paper to be issued to the Hawke's Bay Airport Board. That's provided an attachment to. And that was really just telling the story, I guess, of how the risk of bird strike has been considered and managed throughout this design process. So that was quite detailed. Happy to take any questions on that, which both me and Connie can probably answer. The next main action there was the avifauna scope. That has been, a request for services has been prepared and issued to PDP. That scope was agreed to by Hawke's Bay Airport, which was quite a critical factor. And that work is a big part of the next steps, which I'll talk about in a second. So that's off. One of the outcomes of the workshop was confirming with the chair just directions around minor changes to complete the master plan, which have been complete, and Rebecca will talk to those shortly. One of the next tasks there was the project naming process. So as we've all been aware, that's sort of been a matter for a little while now. So Connie has actually kick that process off in terms of developing a name for the project. There's a few steps involved, and again, that sort of forms one of the next steps moving forward. And that's a good segue in terms of attachment 3, which we have sort of outlined the potential phases of the project moving forward. So I will just quickly go to that. That's on page 29 of your agenda document. So talking to this, obviously phase 1 is this master planning process. Phase 2 is almost, I guess, stage 2 of that before we move into a stage 3, 4, 5 and 6, which is your kind of traditional or business as usual design, procurement, construction type phases. What we're aware of with phase 2, there's still a few matters to be undertaken. As I mentioned before, one of those is the bird strike risk assessment. And I think it's important to recognise that what we've got with our master plan now is our spatial layout of a concept that has gone through a design process to provide for the drivers of the project. Now, once we have that spatial layout, and in terms of easy words, that we're looking at moving forward with, there's a number of extra assessments that need to be undertaken to sort of move through to the concept design phase. And bird strike is one of those. Now that we've got that spatial design, we can begin to consider that in its granular detail, and also be aware of how bird strike needs to also be managed, just not through the actual activities established, but during the construction processes and the sequencing and everything that goes on to actually realise the master plan. So in detail, that can only really start now that we have got the master plan. Next step there, and these will potentially occur concurrently, all of these actions, but we need to look at focusing on some of the initial priorities. So that involves building out a program of works. We also need to start thinking about the land status in terms of the classification of different areas of the site. And again, now that we've got a spatial layout, we can turn our attention to that. We think it's important to develop a planning approvals blueprint for the core programs. We don't think it's necessary to undertake a comprehensive planning assessment or consenting strategy for every program that's proposed within the master plan, but just focusing on the priorities and the things that are going to kick off first. It's also a good opportunity, again, now that we have that spatial concept, to look at alternative funding opportunities. And then we come back to the more standard approach of looking at the concept design for the core programs. And we're aware that the Waiharoa entrance and the wetlands intakes, outlets, all of that work associated with the stormwater treatment are obviously clear priorities. So concept design will commence for those and any other programs that are identified in that program of works. Once we have a concept design, that's when we can develop cost estimations for those projects. And that's when we can, look at funding and budgets and so on. It's also, I think, we'll carry on with exploring the appropriate name and undertaking that process. And then alongside all of this, or probably very much at the beginning, seek adoption from the partner organisations alongside information pack on budget and programming and so on. So there's a little bit of work to still occur. And that's, I guess, the key topics that we'll look to develop some work streams for. And then obviously phase 3, moving across into prelim design, that's when we take those core programs and the concept designs that we've got, work towards resource consent, work towards a procurement strategy, check costs and so on, move through to detailed design, procurement in terms of contractors and construction. And there might be a number of different programs sort of progressing through those phases at any one time, or alternatively, they may be staggered. So yeah, potential for quite a lot of overlapping work streams, but phase 2 is very much completion, I would say, of the initial phases to give us the direction. Would you like me to carry on, or I know that the next phases was one of the key points of this session. Do you want to spend some time on that now, or complete and then come back to that?
Thanks very much, Cam. I think there's a couple of key things you've covered in there. Obviously, of particular interest is the bird strike risk, and I'll see if the members have any particular questions on that.
Yep.
And also, I think you've done a really good job of laying out what that sort of program or phasing plan looks like, and we've just gone through that in detail. So maybe we'll pause here and see if there's any questions in relation to those two parts of the agenda topic. I'll open the floor. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Look, good morning, Cam. The bird strike issue, and Nick's not here this morning, there seemed to be some pretty compelling logic in there that you could actually improve the situation relative to the status quo with a whole bunch of grassed areas that aren't planted. I mean, does the airport buy this, or are they still way over here with this? I mean, there's an enormous amount of information, there's a scoping for further assessment. Are we going to get the airport across the line on this, or are they going to say, no, at the end of the day, this is wrong?
Look, I think, we can't answer that question yet. The airport's not here, unfortunately.
But just your sort of impression,
yes,
response during that.
My impression is that I'm very conscious not to put words in their mouth. I feel the way that they've been working with us in terms of contributing to developing the scope for the avifauna, comments about, they're neutral at the moment. I think we're working with them. I think the work that we've determined is necessary is the correct response. And I think it's important to realise that in some respects, we're really only halfway through that matter. We've only now just got a concept that can actually be considered in detail.
Yeah.
They are not telling us not to bother. So I think that they are still neutral, but they are interested in the outcome. I feel that they would not be surprised if there are appropriate management approaches that can be developed, but we just need to do the work.
And if it's helpful, Councillor Williams, I can add a little bit more colour to that. So the Mayor and I met with John Nichols, who's Chair of the Airport Board, and Nick following their presentation of their quarterly report to us a month or so back. And Nick came along to one of these meetings last month. Nick said, look, we support this project. We obviously need to be satisfied that the aviation, the avian risk to aviation is sorted. And it's not just the airport, it's also the Aviation Authority and Air New Zealand as stakeholders in that conversation as well. We've agreed with them what that pathway looks like, I guess, to getting an answer. And the conversation we had with Nick and John included the opportunity for them, for instance, to peer review independently the avifauna report at the end of the process. But the initial indications from the work that's been done is you are correct that there is an opportunity to potentially reduce the risk of bird strike or at least not heighten it. And that is, I guess, the bottom line that this project needs to meet, is not increasing the risk to bird strike. And I think there's been a commitment that the whole way along, and that's been made to the airport, that this project would not proceed if it showed an increase in bird strike risk.
Thank you. And just one other little question. It's helpful, by the way. You just took us to land status. When you say land status, what do you mean by that? Planning, ownership, which, both?
Probably more your underlying classifications, as in the reserve status. It's currently zoned, and there's always that question out there in terms of whether different areas are designated, perhaps, whether there's specific reserve classifications placed over some areas.
So it's planning status you're talking about there.
Yes. Yeah.
None of this is Reserves Act land, is it?
Not at the moment. No.
It's owned by the council.
Correct. Yep.
At the moment. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I believe it's currently freehold title.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll
Thank
open up if, Councillor Williams, sorry.
That's all good, thank you, that's my question.
I'll open up if there's any further questions on the phasing plan or any of the items Cam's touched on in that. Cam, I just wonder from myself or the members are thinking, when we talk about cost estimate QS and we've got that across a number of the phases, I just wonder if it'd be worth clarifying that sort of like a more in-depth, you know, as we move further through the stages, you get sort of high-level estimates through to, you know, better detail. Is that
Yeah, I can take
be
that
the
one.
right way to say it, Greg?
Yeah, so certainly as you get more and more through that engineering process, the level of accuracy obviously goes up and the contingency comes down. So we're just getting a higher class estimate essentially. So
Yeah, it's like
more surety.
confidence level.
more confidence, correct. Yeah.
Fantastic. Are there any other questions before we pass back over to Cam? Cam, I think you're good to carry on.
Okay, thank you. In terms of significance and engagement, the key point there is just referencing the engagement plan and the engagement undertaken to date, which culminated with the presentation from Boffa-Miskell at the last workshop, which is provided in attachment D. Moving down to risk, we have talked about the bird strike matter and the approach to manage that risk. And coming to the overview, it's very pleasing to recognise that our key metrics are all on track. And we have arrived here today on the 9th of June to present you the master plan.
Right, that's a nice summary, I think, of where we're at. We did have a chance to traverse some of those more detailed questions. So I'll just check if there's anything further. If there's not, I'm looking for a mover to receive the project manager's report update, 9th of June. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Hiniwai and Councillor Martin. Hiniwai, did you want to speak to the motion?
Probably not at this stage, yeah.
Perfect.
you.
Councillor
Thanks,
Williams,
Same.
comfortable?
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
If there's no one else wishing to speak, thank you very much, Cam. I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, team. Now passing over to Connie and Rebecca.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Fantastic. So, ladies, if you would like to take us through our second paper, the endorsement of the Regional Park Master Plan. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Cam.
Cool, perfect. Just checking, we might have some of our design team online as well.
Yes, we do.
I'll kick us off just with William. Thank you. So the purpose of this paper is to seek endorsement of the master plan. Office of recommendation at the start is to endorse the master plan and make a recommendation to continue funding the projects through each respective long-term plan. Just wanting to make a little bit of an ad hoc change. I'm really sorry, since the paper's been published, perhaps maybe endorse the master plan with amendments. I just make that note, probably based on today's conversation, there might be some amendments. And we also have a few placeholders in the master plan, such as the executive summary and the sites of significance to Māori spaces. So the most exciting part of today, I think, is we're looking at the master plan. It's this high-level document that really sets a vision for multi-generations of implementation. When we kicked off this project, there was a vision to create a resilient, ecologically rich landscape that enhances water quality, supports biodiversity, and provides a sustainable recreational and cultural opportunities. This master plan has had quite a fun journey, a very iterative journey with our key stakeholders, community, and this committee. Through the committee, there was key project drivers, the core one being stormwater be treated before it enters the estuary, to recognise that this park is regionally significant infrastructure and that there's also co-opportunities for returning the Māori to whānga, striving for ecological excellence and maintaining a predominantly natural environment. So to deliver on the master plan, we had the joint committee, we had council staff technical advisory group, which was formed up of a multidisciplinary team with ecology, Waitananga Māori, flood protection, avian, parks, significant infrastructure partners and planners. The real key initiatives that I'd like to bring your attention to was that this master plan spatially provides for 100 plus hectares of stormwater treatment wetlands, which collect water from urban catchments such as the Piramu before it reaches the estuary. It looks to undertake large-scale revegetation with native forests, shrublands, wetlands, ecosystems, and this will support future mahinga kai practices, and we can have opportunities to embed cultural values, histories and stories throughout the park. We've included quite the summary within the paper on the process that we've taken with you. I think I'll just be telling you exactly what you've been part of, so I won't cover that one in too much detail. We've highlighted through a roadmap the different touchpoint opportunities with the Joint Committee, key stakeholders, tags, and our wider community engagement series. This started back in February of 2024 and brings us through to today, and it's not the end of it, it's just we're endorsing to take it to the next step, seeking endorsement to take it to the next step. So as part of endorsing, we really want to bring it back to that this is a high level spatial vision for where we're heading. We want to seek the committee's feedback to continue with the joint councils around keeping their long-term funding budgets through to the end. That we've got high-level placeholders in each of the long-term plans at Hawke's Bay Regional Council and Napier City Council. We'd like the Joint Committee's direction to go and continue those budget placeholders. We'd like to have direction to continue progressing to a detailed phasing plan to provide greater level of certainty and resources required to deliver on the phases that we've put forward in the master plan. And we'd also like to prepare an information pack to provide to all our partners here at the board level before April of 2026, which is when the next LTP developments occur, which will be around the program of works and the budget required to continue. So as part of so in terms of financial, the master plan has been developed to budget. In terms of the implementation as an outcome of the master plan, Napier City Council has allocated at a high level budget placeholders of 13.2 million from 2028. Hawke's Bay Regional Council has allocated just over 9 million, but that was based on, that previous LTP, not the one that's just been in deliberations. And both organisations have continued supporting budgets for project management costs up until 2027. The risks of endorsing this master plan is primarily we've got a public perception that endorsement of the master plan is an endorsement to construct. This is not the case. The endorsement is an endorsement to continue investigate into a greater level of detail. At each phase, which Cam explored in the phasing plan, there will be a returning back to the committee to confirm that the direction is what the committee has set out to achieve before any construction occurs. The next risk is the naming convention of the project. I think this has been a conversation at this table for a very long time, and it also came through our public feedback series around there's probably a bit of a misunderstanding of what this project seeks to achieve. By calling it Ahuriri Regional Park, I think it has brought in an impression that park has recreation and long you come, stay, be, whereas that's not necessarily the purpose of this project. It's more that there's infrastructure component, it's more natural, and if we return to the drivers of the project, it's really not for recreational purposes. So I think by calling it a regional park, we've inadvertently talked about it in the wrong way. So we're really wanting to continue exploring the naming of the project, and we've started that process, but we're just not quite there yet with options. So we'd like to come back to the committee as well, but that's a risk here. From here, I'd really like to hand over to Rebecca, who's our lead on our design team at Boffa Muskell. It's got the beautiful master plan included as attachment 1. Rebecca will highlight the process gone through and probably the changes that were made following our workshop last month, just to really highlight the iterations that have occurred.
Oh, morena. I guess just to quickly a quick synopsis, which is in the endorsement report. But there were, through a design process, there's several stages, and we've outlined those. It's establishment in that discovery phase, visioning phase, which we did alongside you, took that direction out and started engaging with the key stakeholders and mana ahuriri and mana whenua. And then options and shaping, and hopefully you can recall us coming back with a number of options that we brought back to you, which are appendicised in the report. So we didn't want to lose that process. So the master plan report includes records of engagement. It includes the optioneering, phasing, optioneering and shaping narratives and discussion points, and then the delivery, which is the front end of the document, effectively what we're going to run you through. So I won't bore you on every single page, but I'll just give you some key highlights of what we've produced. We're just working with a PDF, so just bear with me. So we have worked our way through. We're just a couple of little things that we'd like to include, which I think Connie has just spoken to around endorsing with some changes. Just a few nice little add touches or sort of components that can be added to the report to just give it that last little finesse, including possibly a mihi at the beginning with Mana Ahuriri Trust. We've also then just moved through into running through, talking about who's been involved in executive summary. So this is the other placeholder that Connie spoke about. So that one there is just effectively a minor update, but just some narrative from key persons involved in the project, so that we're capturing just a little bit of essence and feel and the reason and the visioning as to why this project came about. And then we move into our analysis work that happened as part of that visioning and what the key drivers are. So we picked up on that feedback from the public engagement about that narrative and not understanding possibly that there was a stormwater-driven project. So that's coming through really, really strongly now, we believe. And we've provided an analysis and also in here as feedback from Hawke's Bay Regional Councils, also including the Lagoon Farm stormwater treatment facility and providing a bit more narrative and understanding for people about what that project is about. We're encapsulating it in this master plan, but equally it's a project within itself. So we wanted to kind of express that and show people about what that is about and have people understand what a stormwater treatment wetland looks like and what is there to do. And then we move through, we're providing context. There's a little bit of the component that the sites of significance element comes in. We just need a little just to decide with Mana Ahuriri Trust about whether we include that there or how we bring that information in. So that you'll see that language is in, I think that's Italian or perhaps it's Latin, just as a placeholder for now. So that's a little piece that we need to update. So that's what we were talking about. The rest of it, however, is moving through, and we are effectively bringing in through the analysis report the approach that we brought, and we've presented these to you before, the analysis diagrams and the like, in earlier meetings as we were starting to shape the preferred option. So the site analysis documentation, this is how design projects start to layer and layer to get to a preferred outcome. Understanding context and the bigger picture and like, so yeah, moving our way through and also extending back and looking back to where the project had come from as well, the original thinking, the ISMIS report, the Coastal Edge Master Plan that ISMIS had prepared. So we're leveraging off that, drawing upon that and bringing that through into the project, so we're not losing knowledge all the way through. And then talking about the master plan methodology and the engagement approach that we undertook, which was the diagram Connie referred to earlier, and a summary of the engagement about how we reached effectively some of the key ideas and elements that made their way into the master plan. In a summary of the engagement. So really what we've always worked to and have been checking all the way through this project is coming back to our framework, coming back to our design principles and coming back to the project objectives. So we've spoken around those earlier. We've talked about the values that we're bringing forward into this project and the main design principles, or the main project principles, I should say, which are environmental wellbeing, te whanga taurekura, environmental wellbeing, te whanga ahuwhenua, activation and cultivation, te whanga ohanga, economic prosperity, and te whanga tangata, healthy communities. So these are the drivers, for, the key kind of principles to the project that have to be embedded in all of the elements that are produced within the design. And the overall vision, which is a 2050 vision, and we heard that quite clearly around the staging. So you will now notice in the report, in the master plan report, there is a stage 1 core regional program. So you can see that half of the park or the land holding is left unmodified, and effectively half, is the stormwater treatment wetlands and the installation of that, and the core element, or the core programs. Following that, then the secondary or the second tier programs, the regional park programs off to the west are developed, including stream alignment, development of wetlands, and native restoration of the native bush. So, and other elements within that. You'll see we then talk about stage 3 being a non-funded potential future partnership. So these are things where the community can start really getting involved, albeit that I note that the community are really keen to be involved in restoration planting, for instance. So community open days and planting days could certainly happen as part of stage 2. So that those are elements, and that's starting to finesse and add, and there'll be movement throughout, I'm sure, this project over its many years of installation. As we know, these types of projects will take some time. And you've seen these images before. We'll note that we had some feedback around the towers. So we've reduced those down to more like bird hide kind of approach. So that's the type of the feedback we're starting to bring in and layer in. And I am sure that in 10 years' time, it might look different again. So it's just effectively evoking an idea to include these types of structures and elements within it. And I'm sure that in time, these things will evolve, and as Cam spoke about, moving into the next phase of design, project and implementation. So we've updated some of the imagery, and also updated what the sort of main visitor centre would look like, the main hub when you come in, and moving into just providing this imagery so that you can hopefully help to find third parties or other partner funders within the project. The other component that we wanted to do is we just included character imagery. That's nice reference points of other projects, other regional parks, other visitor centres, those sorts of things, just to get the minds thinking about what was going through the designers' heads at the time, what was going through the community's heads at the time when we were engaging with them, and a little bit more zooming in on the different areas. So I won't spend too much time on those, but what I will draw your attention to, which came up at the last meeting, was I'll just move past the process diagrams into the master plan staging. So we talked about that at the last meeting and made some adjustments to accommodate that. So you know how I presented the master plan with stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. We've colour-coded that effectively, paint by numbers a little bit, but that helps you understand where things might sit over what we have a 20-year time frame on here at the moment, but obviously you could be a 50-year time frame. It just depends on how you wish to roll the timeline out. However, the core project is in the blue, stage 2 programs in the yellow, and then orange, those future opportunities, which are integrated across all of those areas. And I think that comes back, we followed the feedback that we had from the last meeting, we've updated and implemented that into this staging program, so that's quite helpful. And then we've spoken here around the how they, we talked about how we check them against the principles, and always checking, because bird strike was one of the key things we came up at the last meeting. How are we checking? This is how we are checking that any of the elements or programs that we're producing or have been developed in the master plan are checking against those design principles or the project principles. So it's sort of a little series of icons to show you that we have tested that and checked that all the way through. What we haven't included in the background here is the, in the optioneering phase, we went through an MCA process, a multi-criteria analysis process, all the devil in the detail. We haven't included all of that there. But what we have done is in the appendices, noting that sometimes for a project of this lifespan, things are going to change. So we've appendicized pieces so that if you wanted to release information, you can release the front end of the document. You don't have to release all of the appendices if you don't need to. But yeah, that's ultimately where we've reached. Is there anything else, Connie, you'd like me to cover off?
No, I think you've covered it really well.
Okay, thanks.
Great, thank you very much, Rebecca. It's great to see it coming together, and I agree that inclusion in the back end of some of those master plan staging, colour coding is actually really helpful for our community, and especially our internal relationships with our councillors when we talk about core work program and what is front of mind for them at the moment versus say nice to haves.
Yeah.
So that's really helpful. Thank you. I will open the floor for questions. We have our master plan ready for adoption in front of us with some minor amendments, a few placeholders in there yet to come, primarily at the front end. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Rebecca. Thanks for the overview there. Look, this is shaping up incredibly well, but I just I wasn't able to go to the workshop. Looking back to the summary of engagement issues around cost, facilities, bird strike and what have you, could you, I think I know the answer to this, I just want to check, what would be the 3 or 4 main changes that happened to the master plan that we engaged on versus what we've got now? Is it the separation into the core second phase, the phasing?
Yes, so.
Shrinking watchtowers, what else has changed?
Yeah, shrinking watchtowers, yeah. Yes, well, that is one. And the core phasing and being able to communicate also more strongly through the master plan that the project's core driver is the stormwater wetlands project. I think, as Connie alluded to earlier, it had been lost in the narrative. So that's.
Parks and swings, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So that's certainly come through.
Okay, so that really is that staging and front-ending the essential stormwater purpose of it.
Correct, yes. Yeah.
And
Through
maybe
you, Rebecca, I would say a reduction in built form, I think overall was in there as well. Right. So there were a number of structures sort of shown in some of the imaging and things like that, not only the watchtowers, but the space by where Waka could land, that we naturalised most of those areas. Yeah.
I think through the workshop also I think we refocused on ecological enhancement and biodiversity enhancement, which meant some services that attracted, I guess, public activity was re-looked at and put more in the stage 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, we reprioritised a lot of the items that were on even the initial core work program into either stage 2 or 3 and stage 1 now. Please correct me if you see it differently, but is fully focused on the entrance and the creation of the wetlands and any earthworks resulting as a result of the creation.
And a native plant nursery to support the installation of the wetlands, I think, is part of that stage 1. The other point I'll make is I think at the last workshop we talked, as you talked about, some of the facilities rubbing up against the biodiversity and ecological enhancement outcomes. Freedom camping was a term that came up at the last meeting. We've removed that. It was more around making sure that that can be dealt with at a later point if it does come up. But however, it's not a necessary driver for this project or an element that needs to be in there. There was some confusion around the camping, and we tried to explain that a little bit more clearly at the workshop, that it is sort of educational camping, scouts groups, school groups, those sorts of things within the park. It's not a freedom camping site, so to speak.
Councillor Price.
Just from the workshop, there's talk about the perimeter getting piped or being the water from there being put through the system as well. Where does that sit?
So I wonder if Anthony, are you in a position to come and talk to us, just give a recap on what we talked about at the last workshop, which was around what streams are coming in and what is the next stage for that? So maybe even between yourself and Cam, you might be able to answer that question. Yeah, no, feel free to grab a seat.
Do you mind if I also make a point?
Absolutely.
In the master plan, we've also included a 2-page summary of the
Yep.
stormwater drivers. I think Rebecca's pulling it up now. That will also assist in telling that story of how stormwater is such a key component of the park too. But Rebecca.
I might have missed the start of the question, but so we're focused on that consent for the at the West, what's called the West Shore tidal gates, the consent requirements to discharge to the estuary, which do not include the Taipo or Pandora. It might have been easier to say what it doesn't include. So it includes Purimu, County, Plantation, Georges.
George's Drive.
Or Old Tutakere Riverbed, also known as. So most of that urban area of Napier, and there are some of those minor pump stations pump directly out to sea from that urban area around Napier City. Does that answer your question?
No.
So the Pirimu is in terms of catchments going into the park. My understanding is that everything bar the Taipo and the Pandora catchments are proposed to come through the wetlands here.
Yeah.
I just wonder if you could give us a summary. I think there was some misunderstanding when we say that, because I heard saw a comment around we shouldn't be pumping Jervois Town, for instance, stormwater all the way over here, but my understanding is that already flows a different way. Is there some back parts of Taradale, for instance, that don't discharge into this urban network?
It is a little complicated around, Miani, Jervis Town, because we've got cross country now, which is that new stormwater asset, which pumps out to cross country drain out at Te Awa. And so there are some changes. Actually, Phil's probably better to talk about some of the network changes. And there is probably a crossover point there, but currently Pirimu comes all the way from Miani anyway around the expressway there, around the roundabout by the expressway. My understanding it runs through and underneath the expressway out to Pirimu pump station. There's a point there around Maraenui, just at the back of Maraenui, where it goes east towards Te Awa. Is that?
I'm just, sorry if I may jump in as well. It might be easier if we look at bringing a map and maybe spending some time explaining it to the committee, because it is quite a complex catchment, I guess, that covers the city. And there are different points of disposal and pathways, which is trying to describe.
He's done a very.
It might be easier with a bit of a map.
Thank you. We'll make a action point of that. Thank you, Mr. Bond. I'll just check in with you, Councillor Price, if you have any residual questions.
So the Pirimu is not going into it?
Is going in.
It is going in, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Pirimu.
And I know there's a whole lot of other ones with the Pirimu.
You need a pump station.
That's the big one. It's about 40% of the water going out at West Shore is Pirimu, I believe.
Yeah. That's good news. That's what I was after. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Price. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, look, probably a bit of a tricky one, but under is it called local water done well now? Whose park would this be? Whose stormwater wetland would it be? Would it go to the entity? Have we, what's the thinking? Is this going to become a water entity, water co asset, or is it going to stay city council? What's Mana Whenua? What's the?
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Williams. It's a really good question. I know it's one this project team has thought about since the beginning. My understanding is that is still unknown, because until such time as a water entity is created, and obviously a model for that agreed between the partner councils, and terms of reference drawn up around what assets are in and what assets are out, it is hard to give an in or out answer. I will ask Cam if you have any additional thoughts.
Yeah, so the next stage is when we were just talking about sort of land status and how we talked about your question, is it just a planning thing? That's the topic which I'm referring to.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so apologies if
No, you need to
that
be
wasn't clear.
everything but obscure when it comes to communicating with me.
So I've just rattled down a few points here. So I guess I'm thinking that exercise considers the planning side, which might be notice of requirement. It considers the water entity matter, which I'm unsure yet, but whether that drags in actual ownership or whether there's MOUs or easements, but also the reserve classifications as well. So that's what I'm keen to explore. Depending on the timing of other work streams, when we can round that out, I'm not too sure. But now that we've got the thing, that's when we can start thinking about what those matters look like.
Well, would it be appropriate for this committee to express its view on whether it should stay in local authority mana whenua kind of structure, or whether we should try and ring fence it somehow, or does it not matter? I mean, I guess that's the conversation, is do we put a little stake in the ground now as to what we think is preferred, or is it too hard to tell what's the best?
My initial thinking to your question is that I don't feel well enough informed to be able to form a view myself. I suspect it would be difficult to get the committee into a one way or another view. I think it is a good question, and I think at some point during the Three Waters conversation, it would be appropriate for this committee to make a recommendation on the structure of the asset we've been charged to deliver on. I would be surprised if we didn't need to recommend different types of structure across the park, being that we are delivering a number of things inside that space, and whether or not in partnership we would retain some of that and the entity may take over another part, I think is probably quite likely. So I don't feel well enough informed. I'm not sure how you feel.
No, I don't either. But if there's still ramps or exit ramps or onboarding ramps to do that in the future, then this committee is going to keep travelling. Then that's great. I mean, it's just the flip side of being so overt and clear that this is a stormwater-driven project does lend itself to it becoming part of Waterco.
Yeah. And I think if we can just, for the project team, we can note there is a desire from the committee to give a recommendation at the appropriate stage of that Three Waters or Waters Done Well process. And I see Russell in the background, that probably feels appropriate from the conversation you're going through as well around asset management.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things that are just not clear at the moment, and is yet to be decided by the four councils, and just how much of that asset owning capability that water entity would be. Because I know stormwater is quite not as clear cut. But, water supply, you're connected or you're not. But stormwater sort of caters to a lot of properties. So that's all part of that work process we need to do in the next couple of years.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if there's no further questions, I will just open it up if there's any discussion on the master plan before we look at some resolutions. Just foreshadowing, I have asked Carolyn to bring into our resolutions those recommendations that Connie ran through in the report. So we will get those up on screen for everyone to have a look at. Is there any further kōrero?
It's just more a thanks to the team, but also I notice with the stage 2 planning, while stage 1 is going on, there's grazing on part of the park or half of the park nearly. So just wanted to ask around, is that something through public consultation that came through, or is that more from just a management side in terms of keeping the contract with the farmer there?
Yeah, look, I can only, it didn't come through the public engagement process or any of the key stakeholder process. It's come through actually trying to express the core programs that came through committee, came through the workshop. So it's a representation of that discussion and the point of the priorities and the funded priorities for the park. So showing that kind of funding staging as well. But turning to your other question around grazier or the farm management, there will be a tipping point at which it becomes no longer viable to run that, and obviously operationally as well. So that those things need to be worked through, and that's part of that work in the next phase, is to then enter into that. At what point do you hit that tipping point? Another project I've been involved in, it got to sort of a 2/3 part, and then there was no point grazing the final third. So you get to a point that you just have to go take the whole leap. Yeah.
I think it's very pragmatic the way you've thought through that.
Yeah.
Just acknowledging that it was thought about very well.
We've thought about it. To be clear, we haven't had detailed discussions with the farm management or anything like that at this point. Yeah.
Thank you.
I just said, I'm happy to support the recommendations, but I just wanted to offer a reflection around, the public reaction to the idea of a park in the middle of a cost of living crisis and at the back end of Cyclone Gabriel. It's kind of understandable, isn't it? And hence I can understand the need for the conversation about the name. The reality is, all we've been focused on, Hiniwai and I, as I'm sure Napier City's had its own version of in the last 2 or 3 years, is recovering from a absolutely catastrophic weather event and trying to get our financial house in order, as well as our region in order to be able to withstand the next one. So to do something that has sort of got a positive future, nice vibe about it, did seem like a bit of at times a distraction. But the reality is, biodiversity is the infrastructure of climate resilience. It's as simple as that. The reason we had to clean up such a mess after Cyclone Gabriel is because we have destroyed the natural capacity of our environment, wetlands in particular, to keep water and sediment in whenua, as opposed to literally decimating the base of our economic production and our social well-being. So to actually be able to get ahead of the curve, I think this is what this is about, and it's actually nice to have something. It is nice to have something that's nice, to be honest. Bearing in mind, what really gets me across the line here is that word multiple generations, or those 2 words, that this is a multi-generational project. We're keeping placeholders in the long-term plan, but this is a 30-year investment program that's staged from what's really important to what might be more aspirational, and I think it's got a lot to commend it, and it's actually something positive to finish this triennium with. So yeah, that's what I'm backing it.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Price.
Totally agree with you, Councillor Williams. I think in my time on council, one regular is the treatment of the water that goes into the estuary. And as you say, it's a 30-year project, and the sooner we start that 30 years, the sooner the 30 years is up. So I feel good about it, and that I can put a hand on heart and say we are starting the process properly to get it cleaned up, and to deal with water that needs to be dealt with. So I'm fully supportive of it. The extras that in phase 2 and 3, they've got a little bit of work to do with me. But phase 1, I'd say let's go.
Thank you, Councillor Price. Hi, Evelyn or Joe, would either of you like to speak?
I just like to endorse for what you've just said, and it's part of our vision we have had through our generations back for decades ago, when the issue of the environment came to head, almost 4 to 5 decades ago, when it was spoken by my parents, by my father, and other kaumātua around the area, knowing that the Ahuriri area was in decline. And thank you for that, Martin. You summed it up. Of course, our vision has been for such a long time. And it is going to be over 30 years. And it's taken how many years for the environment to be in the position that it is in now. And it's going to take just as long for us to get it back. And as multi-generations, we're just thinking of our future, of our tamariki and our mokopuna. So kia ora.
Kia ora, Joe.
Kia ora.
I just want to comment on the works that has gone into this project. There's an enormous amount of work, and it could only be done by strengthening relationships and for the betterment of Ahuriri, which is the crown jewel, is around the whanga. And that is what it is. And that includes our waters, it includes our bird fish life and managing it. And I think the works that has been gone into doing that, we've got good people who wants the best for Ahuriri overall within the partnerships and for the benefit of all the people in Ahuriri who will benefit by it. It's an expensive project, but it's worth investing in because it will bring back let's go 30-year term, and that's the proof in the pudding. So we've tried many things, but this is done collectively, and we have got experts from each areas that are advising, and it still can be our jewel, our crown jewel for Ahuriri, which would feed everybody, and which goes along in line with our whakatauki that we have. Meal in the morning, meal in the afternoon, and in the evening, which is, so to speak, feeds everybody, and everybody would, what it would produce. And our people are very, very in tune with the environment, and that's what we want to do. If we look after the environment, it'll look after us, and so physically we can do that for the environment and do what we can do. So a lot of work, and just want to congratulate everybody on the work, the amount of work that's gone into this project. So kia ora. So we just want to support that. Thank you.
Kia ora. Thank you, Whai Evelyn. Thank you all for your kōrero. I know we haven't quite got to moving our recommendations yet, so we're in discussion, but I do want to pick up, I think, on what Councillor Williams said, is that we have all been really focused over the last few years on recovery. And I thought about that a little bit last week, and I remember our leaders and our ministers all saying we will build back better. And I remember at the time going, what does that look like? And for me, that's what this project is. I imagine in 100 years' time, our ancestors, us as ancestors, they'll look back on us and go, I can't believe that they were putting their urban stormwater into this beautiful taonga, the estuary, without any treatment, without looking after it. And for me, building back better is about looking to the future. And in the future, this will not be okay, what we're doing today. That's what our resource consent tells us. We must think about the future, and we must do things differently. And so progressing this is about building back better. It's about eyes on the future, and it's about putting right something that, I think even today we acknowledge is not right. So it's not a nice to have. It's really integral to who we are. And personally, after just spending 3 weeks in the United States, when you come back here, you really appreciate our environment, our air, our biodiversity, our birds, our way of living. And I think this will be another jewel in what Ahuriri is in the future, and it really is about who we are. So when I think about, and I see it online all the time, fix the water first, or core infrastructure, bring back to basics. That's exactly what this is. I think our whanaunga over the river in Hastings, acknowledged they'd spent $100 million on infrastructure over the last short period of time. Well, Napier's spent $110 million. And this is another huge commitment towards our Three Waters infrastructure. So Napier is not taking, Ahuriri is not taking our investment in infrastructure lightly. And it's not just about what we spend today or yesterday, it's about what we plan to spend in the future and what we plan to achieve with that. So I'm incredibly proud of all the partners around this table and how we have worked together in our first co-governed entity across the region to deliver on a project like this. So I know it's just the first step, Cam, and there's a lot of work in that staging plan for you to come. But thank you, Rebecca, and your team at BOFA. I know we have Gabe and William online as well. I know there has been a lot of mahi go into the master plan that we have in front of us today. So that's my kōrero, and I thank you all for your participation in it. I have asked Carolyn to pop up on screen those recommendations that were sitting in the paper. So if you just take a minute to read through those, we have an endorsement of the master plan and direction to officers on those next steps. Once you've had a chance to review that, I am happy to take a mover and a seconder.
Happy to move, Chair.
Moved by Chair Ormsby.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Williams. Thank you, team. Chair Ormsby, I will pass over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Just a huge mahi to everyone that's been involved, our architects of design, all our planners and project managers, and also to you, Annette, our kai hautu, our captain of this waka. We're going to miss you. Oh, sorry. It's coming earlier than I thought. But look, this is such an exciting project. And from the start, I think we both sat down and thought, what can we do for Te Whānau? And just the strength of relationship with our whanaunga at mana Ahuriri. So just really blessed that we're at this stage. It's enough for me.
Kia ora. It's lovely. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, look, I just think we can have an enormous confidence in this document because of the team that's led it. But equally, I think because of its very firm anchoring in the principles and values that Joe and you have just shared, and the aspirations of mana Ahuriri, and equally, the alignment with Te Muriwai o Te Whanga strategy, the alignment of the objectives with the PO that are in that. So it's got integrity because of those, because of the process, but where it comes from and where it's going. Yeah, so that, I guess that was the point. Just one other little issue around, okay, it's not a recreation park, but it is an education park. And one of the PO here is education in Te Muriwai o Te Whanga, and equally one of the objectives of this. So I think where there is recreation, it's with a purpose. So yeah, I think I don't need to say any more.
Thank you very much, Councillor Williams. I'll just open it up if anyone else would like to have any final kōrero. Councillor Price.
Just to like to say thanks to you, Annette, for all the work you've done on this, and to the staff, Cam and the crew. It's come up with a good result, and it's a good farewell to poor old Annette who's leaving us. Thank you.
Poor old Annette, thank you. Councillor Price, don't put that in the minutes. Would either of you wish to say any final kōrero before we put the motion?
No, just want to thank everyone for the works and the efforts and the architects, and yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you both. All right. I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. That's a huge milestone for this committee, and I think it's come just at the right time. So, yeah, really appreciate that. I think our last thing on the agenda, and it was touched on in the whakaaro on the previous item, was I did just want to have a little talk under minor matters of next steps. So just from myself, this is the final meeting of this committee in this triennium as we go into the pre-election period. As Councillor Price mentioned, I have indicated I won't be restanding for my role at Napier City Council. So I will be passing the rako of this committee over, which I'm sure will be dealt with once elections are over and we know who's sitting on which committees and things like that. So there will be a new leader of this kaupapa going forward. I'll sort of say in the past we've talked about possibly having a rolling chair between Mana Ahuriri and Hawke's Bay Regional Council, so I'd ask you to consider that when you re-meet in the new triennium. But just a big thank you from me. It has been the biggest highlight of my public service career, getting this piece of 484 hectares of farmland that was zoned industrial to be built up right next to our estuary, to work with our councils and our partners at Mana Ahuriri to rezone that into special conservation purpose, to return it back to the environment and to deliver something intergenerationally good for Te Whanga. So it is a huge highlight for me, and it will be the thing I will talk about probably for the rest of my life, that I'm proud of what happened in this room with you. So thank you very much for having me, and I know that you will take that rako and carry it forward. So kia ora. Thank you very much. With that in mind, I'll ask Joe if you are happy to close us with karakia. And kai karakia.
Just before I close off, it's just a mihi to everyone. So I'll finish it with the waiata. Aroha e karere ki te ao, Huri tia ko ngā kaupapa ki a mau. Ngā tamari ki tō e kei te rangi e hā e re ana e taukuri. Whakamau ko taku titiro, e re re ngā o te rā. Tau ana te haruru e, I te manawa. Horahiare he matariki ki te whenua. He maramatanga mo te motu e. Ia tipu he puawai honore. Mo te pani mo te rā kore. E te māngai ngāni hira ponu te tokotoro taka. Te whakaungi e mātiki roti tu aro no pairi e tiana mātiki. Ki te rangi mari ngā wā katoa. A te māngai e tau tuko mai. Ai nei ake nei. Ai. Kia ora.